श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम्। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। सदात्मध्याननिरतं विषयेभ्यः पराङ्मुखं नौमि शास्त्रेषु निष्णातं चन्द्रशेखरभारतीम्। ॐ. In the last class, we had seen the commentary of the Viveka Chudamani by the 34th Acharya of the Sringeri Sharada Peetham, Jagadguru Srimad Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswamigal. The fourth line on page 2, Jantunam Jananashilanam Praninam Narajanma Manushakam Durlabham iti. Acharya had said that the second verse of the Viveka Chudamani contained within it the essence of the entire Viveka Chudamani, very much like the Asochan Anvashochastam Pragyavadamshcha Bhashase Gatasoon Agatasumshcha Nanushochandi Panditaha. That verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Like that, this verse too is the summary of the entire Viveka Chudamani. And then he had gone to say that it is only an astika who has the right to study scripture and follow its injunctions. And the reason for that was that the scripture was predicated on the acceptance of a soul that is independent from the body. Many of the karmas that have been enjoined in the scripture presuppose the existence of a soul independent from the body, because a lot of the results accrue only after the body has died. So when there is an injunction to perform the Jyotishtoma sacrifice for anyone who desires heaven, it presupposes the existence of a thing called heaven. It also presupposes that the person, after living his life on earth, travels to heaven and enjoys the benefit of heaven as a result of the sacrifice. The sacrifice produces that result of him enjoying the glory of heaven. And therefore, without such an Atma being accepted, no one will have the interest to perform the rituals. If someone does not even believe that he is going to travel to heaven after death, what is the inclination for him to perform a sacrifice whose result is the achievement of heaven after death? And therefore, the Vyakhyanakara Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswamigal says that Astika Seva Shastriyadhikarat. It is only an Astika, someone who believes that the soul, the Atma, is independent from the body. Only such a person will have the pravritti and the right to the scripture, to Shastra. And then he quotes a supporting statement from the Sharirika Bhashyam authored by Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada, Shastriya tu vyavahare yadyapi buddhipurvakari naviditva atmanaha paraloka sambandham adhikriyate. And in that statement, Adi Shankara is saying that any person who performs a Shastriya Vyavahara but performs it on the basis of the assumption that he's an intelligent human being will only do so if he believes that the Atma is not only associated with the body in this birth, but is also associated with a body in the Paraloka, in heaven or hell, for example. Only such a person will have a pravritti or an inclination to Shastriya Vyavahara. And then he starts the commentary of the second verse by saying Jantunam Jananashilanam Praninam Narajanma Manushakam Durlabham iti. So the first sentence of the verse is Jantunam Narajanma Durlabham. So he quotes that. Jantunam means Jananashilanam Praninam. All the living beings who are subject to birth are called Jantus. Narajanma means Manushakam. Having a human birth is Durlabham, is very rare. Next sentence. तत्र एकेनैव बहुषु जन्मसु प्राप्तव्येषु किल नरजन्म दुर्लभम् इति वक्तुं शक्यं शरीरसम्बन्धस्यैव जन्मशब्दार्थत्वात्. Acharya is saying here only if there is one thing which is associated with multiple births, can one actually say that amongst many births, the human birth is very rare. Because when you say Janma, what it actually means is not the birth of the Atma, because the Atma is birthless, but that the association with the body is what is normally referred to as birth. When you say a baby is born, what we are referring to is that the baby's Sharira is born. And only if it was accepted that there is one Atma that is associated with multiple bodies, can it be appropriate to say that amongst the different births that are possible, the human birth is the rarest? Continuing, यदा चैकस्य अनेकशरीरयोगः तदा शरीरव्यतिरिक्तत्वम् आत्मनः सूचितमेव. Acharya here is saying that when the one Atma has been said to be in association with multiple bodies, then it has also been indicated that the Atma is independent and distinct from the bodies. So, for example, when I say I am associated with my friend Ram, it follows automatically that me and Ram are different. A relation or an association is only possible between two distinct and different entities. Therefore, if the Atma is associated with a body, it follows that the Atma is different from the body. Next sentence. प्रसिद्धं खल्वनेकैः कुसुमैः युज्यमानं सूत्रं तेभ्यो अतिरिच्यते इति अनेकानि वासांसि क्रमेण युगपद्वा परिदधत् शरीरं तेभ्यो भिद्यते इति च. Here, Acharya is saying that it is quite well known that a garland which consists of multiple flowers connected together by one string. It's very well known that the string is different from the multiple flowers that it is in association with. Similarly, we wear many clothes on the body. Sometimes we wear multiple clothes at the same time. Sometimes we wear clothes in sequence, different clothes in sequence. In both the scenarios, we know that the body is different from the clothes that are worn on it. So, just like a string is different from the flowers that is in it is connected to, and just like the body is different from the clothes that it is connected to, it follows that the Atma is different from the bodies that it is connected to. So he summarizes the whole discussion. He says, Tathacha Sukhahetu Sharira Praptage, Dukhahetu Sharira Nivrittage cha, Punya Pravrittihi, Papa Nivrittischa, Yujjate iti. Vidhi Karmashastre Astikasyaiva Adhikara. So here, as a conclusion, he says, the right to the Shastra, Karma Shastra, that is the ritualistic portion of the Veda, which consists of Vidhi and Nishedha. Vidhi means injunctions, do this. Nishedha is negations, prohibitions, do not do this. So the Veda will say, perform Agnihotram daily, so that is a Vidhi. Perform Sandhya Vandanam daily, that is a Vidhi. Nishedha will be, do not consume alcohol, do not consume meat, do not hurt other creatures. All these are Nishedhas. So the entire ritualistic portion of the Veda consists of Vidhi and Nishedha. Prohibitions being Nishedha and injunctions like Vidhi. So the entire Karma Shastra, the only person who has the right to perform that is those that concede that there's a self which is independent of the body. And it is because that it is the person performing the rituals has accepted this as a precondition, it is only then that it is possible that such an individual will take the steps required to attain a body which is the cause of happiness. Sukha hetu sharira praptage. So all of us, I mean, when we are this particular body that we have at different points in our life, it gives us joy. At different points in our life, it gives us sadness also. And in youth, when we are playing with this body, when you're able to climb trees and do a lot of those fun things, then the body is a source of joy. In the old age, when the same body starts giving pain, it's a dukkha hetu also. But sometimes some bodies are in general sukha hetu. Like, so if you're born as a deva, if you're Indra in heaven, then that Indra Shariram is a cause of happiness for you. At the same time, if I am suffering in Naraka, that body is a dukkha hetu for me. So if I am born as an animal that gets killed, that body is a dukkha hetu. Similarly, if I am the king of a country, that body is a sukha hetu. So Acharya is saying that it therefore follows that in order to attain a body which is naturally pleasant, gives rise to pleasant experiences, and to avoid those bodies which are cause of unpleasant experiences. Sukha hetu sharira praptage, dukkha hetu sharira nivrittage cha, it follows, what follows? Punya pravrittihi papa nivrittischa yujyate iti. It follows that someone will be inclined to accrue punya that will be cause of sukha hetu sharira prapti, and to avoid papa, which is the cause of dukkha hetu sharira prapti. So, sharira dukkha hetu sharira nivrittaye cha, sukha hetu sharira praptaye cha, papa nivrittihi punya pravrittihi yujyate. Therefore, it is only an astika, a person who believes that the self is different from the body, who has the right to karma shastra. In moksha shastra also the same logic applies. He says, evam jnanena sakala karma nirharanartham moksha shastrepi. Even in that portion of the Veda which deals with liberation, the moksha shastra, where jnanena sakala karma nirharanartham, where knowledge or jnana is used to remove all possible action from the Atma, the same logic applies. That is, only a person who truly knows that the self is different from the body has the right to even commence the Moksha Shastra. He says, Yadi Sharirameva Atma Syat Tasya Pratyaksha Siddhatvat Atma va are drashtavya shrotavyo mantavyo nididhyasitavyaha ityadi darshana sadhana vidhanam katham upapadyeta. He says, if the body itself were to be the self, there is a group of philosophers in ancient India called the Charvakas or the materialists. They are quite similar to modern day scientists or modern thinkers who hold that there is no such thing as a self, etc. There is no entity that corresponds to consciousness. It is the body alone that is conscious. There is no independent entity called the consciousness. It is the body alone that is consciousness. This is a very ancient philosophy also. It's not a very newfangled notion. It used to exist in ancient India under the term Charvaka philosophy. So they are called Dehatmavadins. That is, they used to say that the body itself was the self. Acharya is saying here, if the body itself were to be the self, like the Charvakas were to say, if the body itself were to be the self, then that body is an object of perception. One can see the body, one can touch it, etc. So it is a pratyaksha siddha vastu. Pratyaksha means perception. It is an object of direct perception. That being the case, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, in talking about the self, says that the self should be seen, it should be heard about, it should be thought about, it should be meditated upon. And this Shravana Manana Nididhyasana, which is the means to know the self, essentially what Yajnavalkya is saying there is that the self has to be known. And that knowing that self is the means to moksha, is the intent of the Shruti. Now, if knowing the self was the means to moksha, and the body was to be the self, the body being an object of direct perception, the self would also be a matter of direct perception then. Then what is the necessity for Yajnavalkya and the Shruti to say, in order for you to be liberated, know the self. And to know the self, you should hear about it, you should think about it, you should meditate upon it. All of that would be utterly fruitless. The Shruti could simply have said, please go look into the mirror and whatever you see there is the self. Or please look at your hand. You see the hand, it belongs to the body is the self. It could have simply said that. That cannot be the means to moksha. If that is not the means to moksha, it follows that what is seen by perception is not the self. And if that is not the self, it means that the body is not the self. Okay, so next line. शुभैराप्नोति देवत्वं निषिद्धैर् नारकीं तनुम् उभाभ्यां पुण्यपापाभ्यां मानुष्यं लभते वशः इति चैकस्यैव शुभाशुभमिश्रकर्मभिः विजातीयशरीरलभं दर्शयति. So Acharya is quoting a verse which says that with punya, shubha karma, one attains devatva, the state of being a deva, or essentially attaining heaven. And by performing nishiddhaihi, those that have been negated or which have been prohibited in the Vedas, one attains a narakim tanum, a body where one suffers the horrors of hell. Ubabhyam punya papabhyam, when one performs a mixture of punya and papa, that is, their life consists of a combination of both punya karma and papa karma, then one attains a manushyam, a human body, labhate avashaha. Essentially, by performing these different kinds of karma, in spite of oneself, one will attain a devatva sharira if it's predominantly punya karma, a narakim tanum, a body that is designed to suffer the horrors of hell if one has done predominantly papa karma, and if one has committed a mixture of punya and papa, it will be a human body. And this will automatically happen in spite of anything that the jiva does. Now, essentially what he is saying is, from this verse, one knows that it is the one self through the performance or the association with shubha karma, punya karma, or ashubha karma, papa karma, or a combination, mishra karma bihi, one attains different kinds of bodies. So thus, it is karma that determines what the next birth is going to be. Now, if therefore, it follows that there is one Atma which persists across multiple births. That is what the Acharya is trying to say here. Moving on. Katham anyatha loka prasiddham sukha dukkhadi vaichitriyam upapadyate. So without the association with different kinds of karma, different varieties of karma, how otherwise can one explain the really well-known instances of experience of happiness and sorrow? It is really well known, for example, that within the same family, with the same setup, different children have a completely different personality. They have a completely different set of circumstances. They are different, completely different set of experiences. If the starting conditions are the same, then how else to explain the variety of experiences that we encounter? And the answer given in Shastra is that the variety of experiences encountered is as a result of the karmas that have been performed by those jivas. And therefore, without the explanation of a karma, without karma sapekshatvam, one cannot really explain the multitudinous variety that one observes in life, wherein within the same house, completely different experiences are had. And within society itself, somebody is extraordinarily well off, somebody is really poor, somebody has good clothes to wear, somebody is in rags. Sometimes one is very, very happy, sometimes one is very sad. How does one account for this absolute disparity, this difference of experience? Unlike the deeply unsatisfactory explanations given in modern thinking, such as everything is just purely circumstantial, it is just a coincidence, it's completely random, Vedas and the Shastras say that human agency is absolutely responsible for the types of experiences one encounters. And therefore, the message that the Vedas give to humanity is that we may not be completely in control of the results of our actions, but we are in some control of the actions themselves. And by acting in accordance with the Shastras, by performing the actions that have been enjoined in the Shastras, by avoiding those actions that have been prohibited in the Shastras, one can have a materially important influence over the types of future births that we have. Thus, the Shastras point us towards an optimistic future, that we have the ability, the means within our disposal to have a material impact on our future happiness by following dharma, by avoiding adharma. The Shastras don't just stop there. They present us with the vision of who we truly are. And in presenting that vision, the Shastras permit us to experience that inner reality for ourselves. And that experience of that reality, the realization of that knowledge, is what moksha is all about. That and the continuation of the Vyakhya we will consider in the next class. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.